sugar companies, or should I say energy companies, were in focus yesterday because they were buzzing, and maybe with reason. There was some positive news flow, not completely understood by the market, also about the reduction in GST for ethanol, and by a lot of people actually. But add to that, there's a lot of talk about what could happen to the base business itself as well, with all that's happening around the world, floods and drought situation in Pakistan. Brazil might have plant production, and therefore, what could it do to sugar pricing as well, with the quantum of sugarcane being diverted towards ethanol in India as well? So, what would these sugar or quote unquote these energy companies' fortunes look like in 2023 after what's been a very interesting last 2 or 3 years? One of the best persons to talk about it, Mr. Atul Chaturvedi of Shree Renuka Johnson, to talk about this. Mr. Chaturvedi, thank you so much for joining in. And at the outset, wishing you a great holiday season. Can you talk a bit about what the current landscape is? How is the new sugar season begin? And what is the global picture looking like?
As far as the domestic crush is concerned, I think the domestic crush actually got started a bit late, maybe about a couple of weeks late because of the late rains and all, and the fields were flooded. But now it is absolutely on track. Even our all plants are running full steam, absolutely no issue on that front. And as far as the international scenario is concerned, internationally, Brazil seems to have got stocked out relatively fast as far as the raw sugar is concerned. And that is one of the biggest reasons why internationally the values are moving northwards. But as far as India is concerned, India continues to be in a reasonably sweet spot because our sugar cane, or rather our cane production this year, is going to be practically more or less like what it was last year. So there's no reason, and India is, in any case, the allocation for exports is only about 6 million tons, which means we would have adequate space for diversion to ethanol, as well as it will keep a lid on the domestic prices as well.
Okay. Should the world prices move up because of some of the reasons that I spoke, but many more that you might know of, would Indian prices still stay stable, or you reckon that there is a chance that we might see a spike in India too?
I feel Indian values are relatively inflation proof for the simple reason that the government monitors the quantum of the sugar to be released in a month. But once you are over with the crushing season, say by the month of March, you might see some traction in terms of prices increasing, but I don't see uh, how and why the prices in India will move up because India is having adequate stocks. Absolutely no problem as far as stocks are concerned.
Got it. Mr. Chaturvedi, a word on now the focus a bit on the ethanol side. Now, I would love this clarification from you, sir. This news yesterday about the GST on ethanol for petrol, the rates coming off, and in some quarters, the belief was that this had already happened some time back. So, what was new? Because there's a lot of excitement around the sugar stocks yesterday on account of this news.
I know when I first got this information in the morning, I was also a bit amazed that in any case, for the OMCs, oil marketing companies, the GST was in any case 5%. In fact, sometime possibly in 2018, maybe I think if I remember correctly, the month was July. The GST was actually reduced from 18 to 5. But what then digging deep, I was able to find out that at that point of time, the private refineries like the one which Reliance has in Jamnagar or Nayara, which was the erstwhile SR refinery, so they were probably deprived of this advantage, and that is probably the reason why they were relatively lukewarm as far as their thrust as far blending is concerned. So possibly this should put the record straight.
Yes, it does. Is that a very big quantum, or is it a fraction of sorts, or a rounding of error?
No, what I would say is this would possibly be an incremental increase. It's
Got
not something which is going to be, but in any case, our target as far as the government is concerned is 20% blending by 2025.
most
But the
certain.
only thing which I would like to add in this is the grain ethanol, which was supposed to be contributing about 4.6 billion liters by 2025, doesn't seem to be on track to deliver. As far as sugar is concerned, 5.5 billion liters from sugar is no brainer, because sugar production is going up and there's an ecosystem which is already in place. And with grain prices moving northwards, uh, it's a bit of a challenge. So, which possibly means the government will have to, at some stage, revise the target for the ethanol to be supplied from cane. So that should be again more and more positive as far as the sugar sector is concerned, because the sugar sector will continue to keep ramping up the capacities to fulfill the requirements.
Yeah, I'm going to come to your capacities as Mr. Chaturvedi, but just before that, one more point. This whole conversation we heard, I saw Minister Hardeep Singh Puri talk about the possibilities of extending the blending percentage to beyond 20% as well. There is this whole global biofuel alliance that India is chalking out. They are hopeful that Brazil and US will also play suit. Now, where does all of this position the demand for ethanol and biofuels, and what could be the sugar industry's role out there, considering that there is X amount of cane produced, there is X minus A amount needed for sugar production as well per se, because it's such a common man's food, and then the remainder for ethanol. So how do you juxtapose all of these?
No, I would say what the minister is saying is absolutely true. In fact, in Brazil, the blending ratio is close to about 27 or 27.5%. And there's no reason why Indian blending percentages should not go up with all those flexi fuel cars coming into play. My take is, down the road, we can possibly see that India may no longer remain a relevant exporter. If what we are exporting,
Of sugar, you mean?
yeah, what we are exporting today, gradually I'm sure it can find a home in India itself by way of ethanol. So, as far as availability of ethanol is concerned, that shouldn't be an issue. And as far as availability of sugar for the domestic market is concerned, that will not be an issue. Because if you really look at our numbers, in sucrose terms, India is producing something like 40 to 41 million tons.
Hmm.
So if the 6-7 million tons diversion going forward, I'm not saying it's going to be done today or tomorrow.
Sure.
Going forward, that India doesn't need to export. We can all jolly well transfer it into ethanol, because our energy security is that much more critical.
Most certainly. Okay. Mr. Chaturvedi, your plans. You were planning to start commercial production with expanded capacity during the new season. Has it started? What is the current capacity versus the previous one? What does it do to numbers for you?
At the moment, I am in the state of Karnataka,
Okay.
visiting the commissioning of our distilleries. In fact, our distilleries are, the expanded capacity is more or less at the last mile. And in fact, we hope that we will have the expanded capacity coming into play in second half of January. Our current capacity is about 720 KL, but because we are running largely on cane juice, so we are able to produce almost something like 850 to 900 KL even as of today. So our expanded capacity, once the expansion comes into uh, operation, it should become 1250 KL per day. And as we are using cane juice, it might effectively be something like closer to about 1400 KL per day.
Wow. So you, if I'm not wrong, a note said that for FY22, or as the case may be, you produce about 16.5 crore liters of total ethanol, which was a 21% increase. Highest ever dispatches as well, which was very high. What do these numbers potentially look like? Because I presume the demand for ethanol, I mean, whatever you produce will get consumed.
Our take is that this year we might actually be in excess of about 20 crore, about 20 to 25% increase. In fact, we have more or less achieved the last year's level already.
Okay.
And the difference between last year and this year is that we had operated our distilleries even during our off-season months, and that was largely because we had stored molasses and ethanol by ramping up our storage capacities. So our distilleries actually ran during the off-season months as well. And with the expanded capacity also coming into play, and currently we are, even without the expanded capacity, we're running at close to about 900 KL per day. So I see no reason why we should not, barring anything unforeseen, our production quantity should go up by about 20-25%.
Wow. So, Mr. Chaturvedi, final question. Sugar year over sugar year, possibilities of uh, fairly strong growth seem to be pretty distinct.
I see no reason. In fact, the cyclicality of the sugar sector is probably now a thing of the past. And what we are also seeing is the sugar or cane values to the farmers is possibly one of the best compared to all the other competing crops. And the farmer is assured of a market just like we are assured of an ethanol buyer. Similarly, the farmer is assured of whatever cane he produces, there's a buyer for it. And he doesn't have to bother too much on the pricing because the pricing is also fixed, which means his margins are fixed. So I think sugar going forward should continue to remain relatively in a sweet spot, or maybe it gets sweeter.
Well, wish you all the best for that. And thank you so much for talking to us today and giving us your thoughts, Mr. Chaturvedi.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And and viewers, thanks for tuning into this conversation.